My name is Carol O'Ree. I'm 56 years old, living in Torbay, Newfoundland. I was diagnosed with cancer of the cervix when I was 31, and 22 years later I was diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer. I'm currently finished all treatments and there are none scheduled on the horizon, so we're living with cancer. In April of 2009, I went in to emerge and they did a scan, or I don't remember, it was a scan or an x-ray. Anyway, they saw the tumor right there. And actually the doctor came in and the doctor I hadn't seen before, you're in emerge, and he said, you have a very large, very unusual tumor on your colon, and chemo is not going to help you. And that was how we found out. And he said, you don't even look surprised. And I said, I'm not really, because my first thought when he told me that was, it's finally happened, so you can stop worrying about it now. And I didn't, worry about it all the time, but you live from checkup to checkup sort of thing. Is this, the checkup that's where they're going to find it again? And that was the way I lived anyway. And so when they found it, it was a shock, but it wasn't really a surprise because I had been really warned about it. That one doctor I had told me that it was very likely that down the road, within 10 to 20 years, I would have a recurrence. So I chose to look at it as I'm living with it, not dying from it. I'm not really big on mottos, but that's, I just thought of it as that way. But the first thing that I did with both doctors that I had seen, the first thing I said to them was, I don't want a hard death. And, are you the kind of doctor who believes in, preserving life at all costs? And if you are, we're not going to work well together. So that was the biggest issue for me. I accepted right away that it was terminal. And, not in a defeatist sense, but, the results were in and that was it. And so then it was like, well, how can I live with this for as long as I can? And my goal was always to buy time on this side of the bed. I wasn't looking to buy time to be bedridden for 3 years, So that was the first thing that I did, with regard to the doctors. Even that concerned me more even than the treatment, or because I knew the treatment was my choice, and I could stop it at any time, but I just did not want a hard death, and I wanted to know that my doctor was going to take that journey with me. So that was the first issue I resolved. I have good days and bad days, and for a while I was having good weeks and bad weeks. We're lucky, we're retired military, and his children are grown, they're adults, and I don't have any, and we don't have to work, so I have the luxury of being sick, and so it's really just enjoy the good days and baby yourself on the bad, and that's it, and you kind of monitor things, and you know what's right for you and what isn't, and so it's not, and I've been living like this for 25 years anyway, because of the previous one where that caused so much damage that really the symptoms haven't really changed. So it's a little worse than it was. Like I'm more restricted, and my diet is bland, but it's like I said, I have the luxury of it. It's just not really a big change for us. it wasn't a new experience. It's new, you know, that it's terminal. Like, I wasn't told that it was terminal before, but if you have cancer, you're worried it's terminal anyway. So emotionally, it was really the same. Putting the word terminal on it didn't really change it a lot for me. One of the first things I did was get a medical directive and a living will, and you got all that done and put it on file. Understanding that they're not, you know, obligated in any way legally, but it helps, you know, to have it. So I did all that, and I made up, I call it my death binder. But I put together things for my husband to do when I'm gone, like who he has to contact, because I take care of, you know, the finances and all that kind of thing. And I put the financial information in and who to contact and what's going to be available and what government departments, as much as I could, basically a checklist form. And so that was like one of the first things and I already had a will, but I updated it but, you know, putting together the information for him was, I think, really important, because so, you know, you see and hear of people who, especially if there's a sudden death, they're completely lost, have no clue. You know, especially if one partner, you know, did the finances, you know, the other partner doesn't even know what bank they're at, you know, that kind of thing. I've seen it, and so that we're very pragmatic about it that way. I asked to go to the palliative care unit because, you know, you have the option of going there or being at home, and so I said, well, I'd like to know, you know, what it entails, and so I'm going to go down there and do a tour and talk to the people, because I said I didn't want the first time meeting these people to be when you're carried there by ambulance, you know. So I've met the doctor there, and so it's just, you know, I've got most things in place now, which really takes a load off your mind, or did off mine anyway. People with the best of intentions quite often end up isolating the patient. And like when the normal frustrations and irritations of the day, people don't tell you, because, you know, what you're dealing with is, you know, so much heavier. And they don't realize that they're denying their wife or mother or whatever the opportunity to be supportive and to be there for you, and to feel that maybe you're helping, or at least, well, you're helping at least by listening, and maybe, you know, you may have more concrete help to offer. But people say, you know, I don't want to tell her about that. She doesn't need to be worrying about that. And the end result is, you know, the patient becomes isolated. And that's like not good, you know, because you don't feel useful, or, you know, you feel like your family doesn't need you, or, you know, I mean there's all kinds of emotions attached to it, and for sure it does more harm than good. There was a young woman in the chemo unit, her first treatment, and she was late 20s probably, and she had, you know, ovarian cancer. So I told her, you know, yes, I have it too, and I'd been diagnosed in, you know, 2009, and they thought that would be my last Christmas if I saw it, and all of that, right? And I don't look sick usually, you know. It's not that I'm well all the time, but you only go out when you're well, you know. So people don't see you, you know, when you're like, you know, white as a sheet and that. But to her, like, she couldn't believe that, you know, that I was terminal and had, and she said to me, you don't know how good it is to, like, see and talk to somebody who's, you know, like, looks totally normal and healthy, and so it gave her a visual of what it could be, you know, that yes, you may go through a period, you lose your hair and all that, but you're going to come out the other side of it, you know. And so I try to make myself available that way, and that's become more important. I mean, there's not much you can do for me. Is there treatment or is there not, or you know, that kind of thing. But it isn't, you know, there aren't any changes you can make really. So all I can do now is what I can for someone else.